Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marcus show. I'm your host, Marques Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined by Omar Clark. But before we bring up Omar to the stage, I want to thank one of our amazing sponsors, US Wellness Meats. We are so proud and so honored to have US Wellness Meats as one of our sponsors. US Wellness Meats is actually in my home, in my personal refrigerator and freezer. They have steaks, they have lamb, they have all grass fed meat. It is amazing, it is tasty, and it's so good for you. We thank US Wellness Meats for sponsoring this amazing episode. Now, here he is, Omar. How you doing today, Omar?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
No problem, my friend. Omar, first question, my friend. What does the word authentic slash authenticity mean to you?
Okay, great question. I would have to say that authentic means to be courageous. Because Marcus, there was a time in my life where I wasn't being authentic. Um, I felt like I had to hide parts of myself,
Mm,
especially my mental health,
mm,
and just carrying that weight was heavy. It was exhausting. And um over time I eventually had to open up, and I opened up to my best friend, and I was met with support. So that kind of built up my courage, and that led me to open up to more people, and eventually to where I speak about my mental health publicly on my podcast.
mm,
And what I found on the other side of that was freedom. I felt
mm.
lighter. I felt like I didn't have to carry that weight anymore. So I guess authenticity to me is not just being yourself, but having the courage to stop hiding.
How about this, Omar? I love your definition of authenticity. Here's mine. I love your thoughts on it. Being authentic is being who you are in the moment, knowing, right, Omar, the moment is going to change. We're never going to stay the same. We're always going to push forward, we're always going to try to deal with challenges, mental health struggles. Like the only thing is, right, Omar, we need to just be focusing on, like you said, but put it in your own words, freedom, right? Freedom. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing, if you're not authentic, if you're not real, if you're not vulnerable, what happens is you stay chained, right? You stay locked to, your the how you look at yourself or how you view yourself, or worse yet, what you think other people think of you or how they view you or what they do. And that's a horrible way to live. Because again, ladies and gentlemen, life is short, right? So if you're gonna live to the fullest and be who you are. But like Omar said, learn to know that who you are is more than enough. So Omar, please tell us a little bit more about your journey and talk about your mental health struggles, things that you overcame, and the work you're doing now, being more courageous. And now, like you said, you're on the other side where you now have freedom in your life.
Yes, yes, of course. I'm someone that went from having a psychotic break and almost losing my life to police brutality, um, to now someone that walks with others through their own suffering, and to show them that their life is not over. So what I do now is I use my lived experience, to show people that recovery is possible and that a meaningful life is possible. Because during my own recovery journey, I recognize patterns, um, principles even, that help me not just to recover, um, but to live a more solid and meaningful life. And that's what I poured into my book, because I realized that um, you know, recovery isn't enough. It's about learning how to live. And um, that is what it's about. That's what led me to my idea of what I call good success. And good success is wholeness. When what you believe and how you live and who you are becoming are aligned.
Omar, I love what you said, like who you are, who you're meant to be, how you're living is who you are. It's like it's aligning your purpose and your passion to your actual living. And when you can do that, right, Omar, what happens is you start to live life for you and for the ones that love you and love the real you, the authentic you. And when you have that, it's freedom, as he's been saying the entire time. And like, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you right now, I really struggled shortly after my divorce when I had to leave my home and move into an apartment for 7 months. I was drinking alcohol nonstop, eating poorly, not taking care of myself. I was just in a constant state of pity party, feel sorry for me. And what I realized now more than ever, where I'm at today, I finally have reached that authentic truth that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm the man I'm supposed to be for my daughters. I have a 22-year-old and I have an 11-year-old, both girls. I'm all about them, my friends, my family, and even like in dating, right, Omar? If I see somebody's not aligned, if I see a woman I'm dating is not aligned with me, my friend, I'm saying, you know what? I really appreciate this, but we're not aligned, and I'm not wasting her time or mine. I'm just not doing it. And this is freedom to make the choices to live our life on our terms. Ladies and gentlemen, not everybody you meet or that's on is a friend or on your journey is going to stay on your journey because as you grow, some people around you they don't grow. If they're not going to grow, you all aren't aligned anymore. And so it just goes back what Omar's been talking about how to really just learn how to be confident and courageous in who you are. So, Omar, before we get into the mental health struggles you talked about, like, finding yourself, working through those, and then talk about your podcast, I have another question for you. How does being authentic help you excel in the career path you have chosen for yourself?
Yes, it has really helped me a great deal. Um, because my profession is that I am a peer specialist. And what that is someone that has a mental health condition, and now I go into psychiatric hospitals and I facilitate peer support groups. So that's where I really have to bring my authentic self every single day because if you're phony, um, they'll people will pick up on that. So I'm always being myself, being authentic, and sharing my own story of how I was able to overcome my mental health challenges. And so many people are touched by when they hear what I've been through and how I was able to overcome that and how I'm doing well. So many people come up to me and like, I want to do what you're doing. And that's what it's all about. Because peer support is really about, you know, everyone helping each other. There's a term called mutuality. That's where it's a two-way road. Like as I help you and you are helping me. It's not just that I'm there providing a service. It's not about that. It's about us learning from each other and supporting each other and building that community.
No, Omar, I'm really enjoying this because I'm going to talk about two mental health issues that I struggled with. I'd like to hear about yours and how you overcame them. I'm going to tell you mine and how I overcame them. So, one mental health issue I had greatly was anger management. When my parents divorced when I was 8, growing up between the age of 8 until I got to the NFL, probably about 22, on and off, I constantly was in a state of anger. I would be quick to anger. I almost got kicked off of my football team and almost got expelled from Howard University for my anger issues. They actually made me go to a counselor to get anger management help. And Dr. Tina Russell, who was a grad assistant, was my therapist, and she was remarkable, helping me to identify how to channel and identify when that was coming to then better myself. So that was one. And then the other one I dealt with on a massive scale was depression. When my father passed away suddenly, that was depressing. When my NFL career ended early after 6 years, that was depressing. When I went through my divorce and lost my business, though I battled depression for so long. And so I actually went to a therapist after my divorce, and I saw him for about 3 years consistently every week. And I learned how to process emotions. I learned how to not turn to alcohol when I was feeling a certain way. I learned how to be real with myself and say, you know what, Marcus? You are a good person. You were in some situations with people that maybe not were so great, which you need to be to pay better attention going forward. But you were good. You just made some mistakes, and you just need to pick up, learn, and keep moving forward. So these are some things that I have dealt with on and off. Like I said, anger management was one in my early years, and then the depression was one I battled even up to probably about 4 years, probably about 3 years ago, just because of all that I went through, especially with my divorce. That was not something I ever saw coming, right, Omar? So again, therapy, friends, outlets, exercise, all these things have helped me to become a lot better, and I deal now with my mental health issues a lot better going forward. Omar, please share with our global audience, like, what are some of yours you went through? How did you deal with them? And now, how do you help people as you're a facilitator at psychiatric institutes, help these people get back on the right track?
Yes, okay. The way I look at it now is the way how I kind of conceptualized it in my own mind of these principles that I used during my recovery. So I struggled with bipolar one. So for those who don't know what that is, it's when you go from having depression, the very lows, to having very highs, where you feel like you're on top of the world, and that could be very dangerous. Because you
Mm.
just are out, you can be out of control and think things that aren't true if it gets bad enough. So that's what I was dealing with. um, and there was a point, like I alluded to earlier, where I was in a hospital. I was having what they call a manic episode. That's the highs. And during that time, someone had, called the police in the emergency room. They came in, they tackled me, took me down or whatnot. And during that time, it was so bad that I stopped breathing. And I remember waking up in the hospital bed, with the tube being pulled from my throat. And during that time, I was thinking, like, my life, how can I get my life back? Just my life feels like it's over, because I was in such bad shape and I didn't know what was really going on because it was my first time this ever happened to me. Um, but there was something in me that believed that I would get better because I didn't know. I didn't know if I could get better. I didn't know if I would recover. But there was something in me that believed that I could recover and I could get my life back. And that's where I came across that first principle that I talk about in my book is faith. I had the faith. It's I'm not just talking about a religious faith because it is part of it, but I'm talking about it in a more broad sense of the word. Um, just believing in something that you can't see yet. And I couldn't see my future from that point, but I believed that I did have a future and that I could get better. And from there, that opened up the door for my recovery because I had hope. because faith is the substance of things hoped for. I had hope that I would get better. And that opened the door for me to move forward with my recovery. And from there is where I found out what the next principle was in my that I started using. And that is my will. Being able to um take action. And that's what I did. While I was in the hospital, while I was still recovering, um I was in the process of interviewing for clinical psychology doctoral programs. And during that time, my mom was able to arrange for me a phone interview with Rutgers psychology department. So I take the phone call from the hospital. I'm still in the hospital. I took action, and I refused to let my dreams die. So I take that call. It goes well, and I end up being accepted into the program. Okay. Um, so I go from there. I get out the hospital. I recover. Um, but there was such stigma. I felt like I had to hide for who I was from being a mental patient, being in the hospital for psychiatric conditions. And to the point where I felt like I didn't want to take my medication. I felt like such a stigma behind that. And that is what led to another hospitalization, and that was while I had finished my first semester at Rutgers. Um, and that would happen where I would have breakthrough episodes during my time at Rutgers, and would happen towards the end of each semester in the winter. And basically, I was finding that I wasn't being true to myself. I felt like I was hiding parts of myself, like I said, and that I love being a therapist, but it wasn't aligned with who I wanted to be because I felt like I had a story that I wanted to share with the world, and I couldn't do that as a therapist because of disclosure, um, ethical guidelines, in with being a psychologist. Um, so I felt like I wasn't in the right place of where I wanted to be, um, in terms of professionally. Um, and that's where um I felt like I had to find my purpose, my authentic purpose. And I really had to look within myself and find what is it that I wanted to do. And that was I knew I wanted to help people. That was a given. But how to help people was trying to figure that out. And what I found is that um, I wanted to walk with people who were suffering, in similar situations that I was in. So I took a leap of faith again, and I left the program, and that's when I stumbled upon peer support. And that's when I felt like I was living in my purpose. Um, but the last principle that I would want to share is that you need help, you know? And I reached out, I got help. I went to counselors, I got psychiatrists, I had my family, my friends, all of that support brought everything together where I can say, now I'm having good success. I've got the position, and I'm in I started my own business, I have the podcast, and things are going well for me. So I can say, through all that, I am fulfilled. I'm content with my life, and I'm happy where I am right now.
You know, Omar, fantastic. What is the name? What is the name of your book?
The book is titled The Omega Principles Toward Good Success.
One question on that. What is the main takeaway, Omar, you want the audience to gain from reading your awesome book?
I think the main takeaway is that there's a form of success that doesn't cost you your soul, that where you don't have to lose yourself for that form of success. And the form of success that I talk about in that book is a success that is really starts as an inner success. It starts with the mind. It starts with your spirit, your purpose. It's a blend of psychology and spirituality with lived experience. It leads you to a life where you're feeling unified, where you're feeling whole, where you're, like I said, where the different parts of yourself aren't pulling apart at the seams, where you come together as one unified whole person.
Love that. I made a note like the principles, the main takeaway is learning how to live the most fulfilled, joy filled life without giving up your soul in exchange for it. How to be
Exactly.
real, how to be empathetic, how to be compassionate, how to help others in their life get ahead, move forward, and enjoy life. Just like from the angle of faith, not just from like perspective of religion, but it's having faith in the good in humanity. And last question, Omar, what is the name of your podcast and what do you all cover in that regard?
Okay, the podcast is titled Voices of Hope with Omar Kenyatta Clark. And on that podcast, the first season, I share my own mental health journey in more detail. Different episodes cover different aspects of my recovery journey. And then in the second season, I invite others onto the podcast, and they share some of their life challenges and how they were able to overcome them. So the point is that um, we share our stories, our experiences, so that someone else who's listening can hear that, be inspired, in or gain some hope that they can overcome as well, because you'll never know what someone has been through, if it's similar to what you have been through, and you could, in a practical sense, even learn something that they did that can help you in your situation as well.
Omar, fantastic interview, great insight. I've got a great authentic tip for our audience. But before that, my friend, again, thank you for joining us. How can our global audience, Omar, get in touch with you?
Well, if you're interested in contacting me, I have email Omar Kenyatta Clark at breathofhopeinc.org. You can look me up at Omar Kenyatta Clark. You find my socials on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
Ladies and gentlemen, please go and support Omar, reach out to him. And again, it's all about learning how to deal with the challenges in life and how to do so in a very holistic, very empathetic, compassionate fashion. We want to thank our amazing sponsor, one of our amazing sponsors, US Wellness Meats, for sponsoring this episode. And the authentic tip of this great interview in life, it is so important to learn that if you're having struggles, if you're having challenges, if you're having a hard time, just open up to people and let them know about you, your challenges. Be authentic, be real, be you. It's okay because, like Omar said, on the other side of facing your obstacles, adversity, your dark side, your dark demons is freedom. And the conduit to get from dark side to freedom is courage. Learn to walk with courage and conviction. Again, my name is Marques Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marques show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.